States from that thing too?
No. More than 15 in Washington alone.
A lot more than that from the flu.
No, actually, it's a little bit higher percentage than the flu. Just a little.
You know,
2.5%.
on an average year in the United States,
Depends on the age, it's off it, or
yeah,
there's a very high percentage. If you're over 85, it's like
Yeah,
50%
you're old,
have
you're-
flu. Yeah,
you're really old. But tonight on the news, they were talking, the latest statistics are like
It's crazy, we're gonna cancel
3.4%.
sporting events,
Oh,
we're gonna
this
go shopping at a
coronavirus.
supermarket.
And
My,
regular flu
my
is a
sister-in-law
little under
teaches at the
1%
University of
That's
Kentucky.
overall average.
Lexington.
Now you're talking about death
Yeah.
She teaches at a university.
compared to how many people get it. You're talking percentage of people who get it.
About 10%, yeah.
Okay, I wanna know what percentage
I
of
don't
it
see what,
people have it compared to people that have the flu.
That allows us to get 1,500 test kits.
Because there's a lot of people die of flu every year.
Well,
Yeah.
you can be very
Yeah.
Either it's just a fact
Yeah,
or
yeah.
it's
Oh, yeah.
just not known as a lot of high, they do know something or not.
So I mean, yeah, be careful.
No, I think
Crazy.
I think everybody's kind of like falling in line with the fad. You know,
Oh, yeah.
you can't sell advertising on TV for regular flu. You can't sell advertising on TV for tuberculosis or Hep C. There's far greater threats to develop.
Oh, yeah.
Y2K again?
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
You know what, I remember that white tube thing, and I was
He's passing this around.
Yeah, I was at a party with a whole bunch of people, very, way out of my social.
Oh, is this the final on the oscillator thing for the 2 meter?
Yep.
Is it a sign?
Well, it's
Yeah,
for,
some of these gentlemen were talking about it.
wouldn't have to be 2 meters. It's-
No,
Well, yeah, but
No.
it works.
it could be anywhere.
That was kind of the
HT anyway.
original, that was the original concept anyway.
Yeah, you put on a 921 watt radio and already get a test.
They'll fix it. They'll make it work. Yes.
There are none yet. I'm threatening. I am threatening.
Aviary flu, right?
I've,
Aviary flu. That thing was
tried out a
deadly
couple
too.
of
How many,
antennas.
you know, it's ridiculous. More people get
when
run
I did
over.
Winterfield Day.
But the problem with that is that's
Yeah,
what
I
wiped out
took the KX2
people
out.
in a year.
It's very clean.
That-
Nice.
That was-
Feel that.
But I have to use the antenna in my
But the point
yard.
is, it doesn't matter, it's sort of,
Oh, you know what? I'm out of USB.
Next
What I'm
step is probably
saying is
bicycle. Throw it on a
You're old enough to
bicycle.
remember that.
All right, well,
That was pretty devastating.
we'll start here in just a minute.
I mean, not even on the same radar.
but they also need to distract everything.
Exactly.
Something's gonna happen at the same time.
Gonna lose audio for a second.
Mine's in 30. I saw kill
Okay, just gonna check. All right, we're good.
Whether you
We'll
have
start
the
here in
illness
just a
or
minute.
not, It's gonna make absolutely no difference on the impact of that flu. You know, people are gonna die, are gonna die.
Milk road around
Stop bus lines, stop trains, stop airline traffic, it's stupid.
and it looked like it worked.
I think the airline traffic should be stopped.
But you can't stop the germs, Mike, if they're already here, they're already here.
No, I know, but you can limit them. And you don't need to put people on planes where they're circulating air in a small capsule to 250 people at a time.
The horse is already left, you're closing the corral after the horse is split. It's
I
already
think,
too late.
I think the best part is
More
the,
time stuff in trees. We're not supposed to do that either.
the news person for Pence was asked a question at the end of his news conference yesterday, if they have any plans to provide testing for the uninsured. And the response was,
Thank you, Bernie.
they ignored the question.
Of course they
And
do.
then a response again after asked again is they ignored the question. And then after the conference was over, the reporter asked the question again, and this person, that's the press secretary, said, well, we're gonna have to look into that, quit pressing the issue.
quick person.
So, look at our homeless situation, Carl.
Yeah.
Think what happens when that population gets infected. Just rampant. So there's some,
expendable.
well, that's one way to
Well,
look at it.
that is true.
What would be your?
Germ doesn't care if you're rich or poor.
But
What?
what does that expendable population?
I don't know about the germs you're catching.
That's
I'm just saying.
Mine are only
as a conclusion
core
from that
germs.
statement.
Well, that's exactly what you're gonna get.
Well, but see, the uninsured will get covered. All they gotta do is an emergency room and explain that they have flu-like symptoms. They'll be tested. Just like they've been doing, when was the last time
look
you've
at
been
that.
to?
QRT guys.
You look how many infections
Yeah.
would happen.
How's it work?
It's a
It's not
long
QRQ. Mike's gonna take it home and do an exhaustive.
There is definitely lightens the load, that's for sure. Let me show that to everybody.
Yeah.
It's a little
I mean, it works, you know,
QRP
uses tin for
KX3.
the, uses piece of tin.
What
Yeah.
is
It's
it?
it's equivalent to homemade.
It's an iambic paddle, but it's actually it's not iambic. It's single lever paddle.
Okay.
Pass it around if you want, let it.
Sure. Here, Chris, you got two things sitting next to you now.
It has a hack.
Now let's see how long that takes to get back around.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you to the three people who are watching us right now. I promise we'll start soon here. I'm just making sure everybody's here, and I just want to make sure the feed's good.
Plans for an 8-pointer in July. Mount Scott, Crater National Park. So I'm gonna be up there.
Are you able to see the screen up there?
Oh, yeah, I'm just not gonna go there, not making cues. That's the plan, that's what everyone else does, to guarantee you, you make the conscious, yeah. So, we'll see what happens.
All right, I just wanted to check to make sure we have audio. I assume we do.
This is almost like a missile launch at the Cape, isn't it?
What's that?
All systems go.
Yeah, we're good. Okay.
stressful.
I'm just glad to know I don't have a bald spot here because I can see if I did up there.
Give it time.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad was bald by the time, or had
Going over.
no hair here by the time he was my age, so I'm thinking I might be all right. All right, so I printed the new sign-in sheet here, and this is based on February 1st renewals. So if you didn't renew your club dues by February 1st, you might not be on this list. So if you're not, then you're going to probably suffer. I'd have to count, but it looks like I might have a whole year in there.
No
But-
snacks for them.
No, yeah, no, they're still allowed to have snacks. I'm going to be easy. I'll let them
You
have
haven't
snacks.
cracked the whip, Mike, come on.
I know, but it's the shame of not having your name on the list. There is one member that did rejoin, and he's not on here. So who knows? Maybe if I get a hankering, I'll add his name. But if you're not on the list, as always, just put yourself down here and sign. So I'll start myself and Chris off here, and it's in alphabetical order, so you might be able to find yourself somewhat easy. Oh, alphabetical in as your call letter. All right, I'll pass the pen around as well. All right. Last month, Eras was here, and he showed us that 8.5 by 11 erasable pad, and the club went ahead and purchased one of those, which is good. So now for field day and whatnot, we have something about this size that you can write call letters and such. I had another one. This is the one that I was suggesting that we get instead, which is a small version of it. Did you not? You weren't here, were you? So basically what it is, you have your pen and you can say whatever you want. And then once you have it on here, if you wait about 10 or 15 seconds, it's permanent ink. So it stays there just like it would on a piece of paper.
It's kind of like refreshable ink, huh?
Yeah.
It's
so,
like this thing, you know. It's
you know,
refreshable
if I rub
We rub
over
it
it,
30
it's
years.
not gonna rub off.
Yeah.
But if you take just a little water and you go over it, then it erases
Don't
it.
touch that.
I'm saying.
Spit on
Coronavirus.
that, he spit
Well,
on the
this
paper.
one's mine, so you don't have to worry about that. But if anybody wants to hold the little blankie to their face.
That's too high.
Yeah, so in any sense, it's erasable on this board. You could use it forever. It's really good for the club, I thought, because because when we're doing field day, we don't have thousands of pieces of paper that are blowing around the field.
Yeah.
And you can write all the information down here. There's plenty of pages. You don't have to erase anything. But at the end of the event, we just take a cloth and we can just wipe the pages off, and then all the notes that were taken, we can check them in the log and make sure we wrote them down right.
So do you have
Yeah,
to use
that's
that, or can you still do it the old-fashioned way?
You mean like an Etch-a-Sketch?
If you want to etch a sketch, you can, but I find
That's
that
the point.
at 35 words a minute in CW, it's kind of hard to get the calls down right. But
More people are talking and stuff, you know.
yeah, but in any case, you don't have to use it, but it's going to be at the station. I figured it was worth the 20
How to work out there in
$5
the lights and stuff.
to buy it. So, and it does use a special pen that costs like $1, so it's not an expensive pen. And it came with a pen, and I think I've got like 3 more. So no, it's just I'll pass this around so you can feel it.
This is it here?
Yeah,
This is just a smaller version.
yeah, that's a smaller version of the
That just
8.5
spits
by
all
11.
over. Well, I know, now I've got it.
Turn the page, and you won't have to worry about the spit.
Most people spit on most papers they touch. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah, sure. You lick your finger
I
and
don't
then
do
you.
it. I don't
Sputter.
know.
When you talk.
You never know.
Most people do.
I don't know, this seems like it's set up to transfer, germs.
That's a good point.
Well, if you don't lick the cloth and you put a little bit of water on it, I thought you might want to write on it. You're welcome to write.
You know, I do believe our current president is a germaphobe.
He is.
I'm gonna put it right back here, Mike.
You're worried about that, Jerem? I can turn you to a page where I didn't wipe it with
Don't
spit.
fly on any airlines.
Sit down there.
See what Mike does?
What if I do this though, David? What if I open it to that page and then fan it in your direction? All right. Anyway, so we do have an 8.5 and 11. I was going to bring it, and I thought, what's the point? We saw it last time. You can see it in the newsletter. Published it, so you could see it. All right. We'll cover other things in a minute here. Let's hear from Chris. Why don't you tell us the what do you call it? The minutes from last month, if you would.
The hours, the 2 hours.
Yeah, the hours. Give us the hours, please.
Yeah. Anyway, we met here February 6th, and we had 13 members, no guests. Mike and MQA gave us a recap on the NAQP event. Treasury report, boy, everybody rolling in here. Let's see, Wells Fargo was $516.79.
That sounds low.
$516.79. And PayPal is 6621.803.
Really?
Yeah. $6,621.03. Comes out to $71.37 and 12 cents. Mike and MQL gave us a presentation on the basic reading of the Smith chart. And for show and tell, as you just said, Mike, Eric TVB brought the Rocket book against the core version to show us.
Yeah.
And that's the non-display, the erasable, I should say. Yeah, notepad, pretty nice. With internet access, by the way. Anyway, on the air, we had 4 sessions and 30 check-ins and 7 online. So there you are.
Okay, thank you, Chris. So, I guess the season is coming for swap meets. Anybody know of any swap meets coming up?
Yeah, March, is
Right.
it the one at the school?
Loomis is
Yeah.
next week.
Next week, right?
No, is it?
When is it?
Thought it was in
2
May.
weeks, 3 weeks,
21st, this month.
21st,
something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Really?
21st.
Yeah.
There's
First Saturday.
one down at in Sunnyvale at the Fry's on the 14th.
Right. Is there fries now?
Yeah.
Okay, now this sounds ridiculous, but which one is the one in Loomis? I know it's in Loomis, but where,
Sierra Foothills, is that who it is, or is it Placer?
is that the Western Placer group?
No, Western.
That's not Katie's.
I think it's Sierra.
Sierra Foothills.
So is that the one that's really way out there? I don't know where Loomis
You were,
is.
I saw you there.
I know, I
That's
go,
where
but I
you've
don't,
been selling your stuff.
I go to all of them locally. I have no idea where that one is.
It's by
It's
the.
Loomis, it's almost to
train
Marysville.
depot, the old train depot that's turned into a park.
Oh, that's the train depot one.
No, that's
If-
Lincoln.
No, that's Lincoln, yeah.
That's the one coming up the train.
No, I thought
Lincoln
that was
coming up,
Loomis.
yeah, Lincoln. That is
No,
Loomis.
that's,
Well, I know it was a
No,
train
Loomis.
depot or not, but it was.
Oh, we're all screwed up.
yeah.
Let's start over. The one coming up is at Loomis.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
The little town of Loomis.
You take Horseshoe Bar Road off
Yeah.
80,
Right.
and you go north until you almost get to the railroad tracks, and it's on the right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on Old Highway,
Lincoln is off of
Old
65.
Highway 40.
Yeah.
That's it.
Lincoln's off,
25.
Lincoln's off of 65 at McBean Park.
51 at about 18 volts.
Park.
Single.
Are they ever Carmichael? What about Carmichael in May?
They're attached to the heat sink, they're on the bottom of the board.
Ah.
Pretty cool, 27 though.
Yeah.
All right, so Loomis swap is on the 21st.
Yeah, then you got Valley of the Moon in April.
We just send it that way or?
Valley of the Moon is April. Oh, that's right. That means a Kids Day in the park. So that means a Kids Day in the park will be coming up because
Yeah,
it's always
same day.
they always put it on the same day as Valley of the Moon. So we'll have that to look forward to. Let's see. Okay. The other thing is the N6NA group. I don't know if you're all familiar with it. Obviously, Phil and John and Art and Bob. Wow, I guess I'm talking to a room full of everybody who already goes. But Phil is their, or was their president.
Paul.
Or Paul, rather, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you in a grave there.
There's
Yeah.
several who'd be grateful.
Well, okay, let's hope that's not the case. But in any case, Paul, their president, unfortunately met with an untimely death.
He got murdered,
He
just
got
saying.
murdered. There was a,
Nutcase.
what is the health and,
He was apprenticing, or he was actually in an internship program,
Yeah.
become a social worker.
yeah,
Right.
And he was working down at the recovery center. And apparently one of the patients or one of the clients had an episode, and he pulls out a knife and he starts stabbing one of the women. Paul is blind. And he goes towards where the fracas is, and he ends up getting stabbed. And then I think there were a couple other
There were a couple
gals
others,
that got
yeah.
stabbed.
Like 5 people. weren't there?
5 people.
Yeah, they
I know it was 4 or 5. In any event,
4.
Paul died. And,
and so did the lady.
oh yeah, two died, and I think 2 had to have some fairly involved treatment.
Yeah.
His wife told us that it was their son's 17th birthday when this happened. And they started a GoFundMe page, actually to fund the funeral costs. And they had a goal of 10 grand for this. And I can't, do you have the number?
10,346.
Yeah, they reached their goal, but there are a lot of, how many people donated?
Looks like 135 donors. And I know
Covered
that.
a wide segment of society too, it wasn't just amateur ranks.
Yeah, I think if they announced it on the news, it would grow exponentially.
Oh,
but-
yeah, went out all over the news, yeah.
Well, if they mentioned the GoFundMe, not just the occurrence of what happened. But, yeah, so if you want to donate, again, just go to our homepage and you can click on where it says GoFundMe here. And then if you, I don't know if you want to, but there's a news story link here if you want to go there. And there's some pictures of Paul if you want to get a better idea of who Paul was. That's his wife Barbara, and here's Paul. He was a really nice guy, and he was extremely capable too, which is something that I don't want to say it surprised me, but you know, he was able to do a lot of DIY stuff, and he always showed it off at the DIY days at the N6NA meeting. So definitely check this out, and you know, if you can, help the family. I know we passed a bucket around at the N6NA meeting on Tuesday, and what was it, like $480?
$457, as I recall, is
Yeah.
what we raised at the meeting.
Yeah, so that was pretty good for just passing the can
Pass the
around.
hat.
Yeah, pass the hat around the meeting. So do check it out, and please go donate if you can. It's really just going to help the family.
And you know, isn't that a strange thing? How many people have you ever known that have been murdered?
Probably 4, oddly. It's
yeah,
not
you
good to
know
be
what I
around
mean.
me.
You know, it's such an
Second one
unusual
with me.
thing.
Second one with me.
Yeah.
Second, I don't envy you.
No, but you know what really sucks? Is that for the 2 people that are murdered, I have about 8 or 10 that have been suicides.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you always see suicides,
right,
it's a lot
okay.
more. So, don't ever take that one lightly either.
Pretty sad.
It's pathetic. This is a horrible, horrible crime, but the suicide is devastating too.
What the hell could have done?
Yeah, that doesn't go away.
Yeah, it's not a good thing. But
Ham radio is, so.
that is, yes it is. Just trying to remember how to do shift up.
Well, I know a couple other hams that were murdered. They were murdered by their own sons, I mean, both cases.
Really?
One guy got the smashed his skull in with a hammer. I don't know how the other one went.
Ooh, can we change the topic?
Yeah, how about in-fed slopers?
Well, we're not quite there yet, but we're approaching fast.
Anything.
So does anybody, Mike, you were off on, were you doing the gem thing? Is that what it was?
The other- Oh, you
Yeah,
were,
and I took my KX2 and checked something off my bucket list, thanks to John and JL.
Mm-hmm.
Hooked it into a 1963 Collins 80-foot military disco antenna
Oh,
at
right.
the Titan
Mhm.
Missile Center.
Yeah,
So that's something I always wanted to do and finally did in
nice.
my late 60s.
Any fireworks? Well, you hooked it into a missile.
Not with 13 watts, no.
Did you make any contacts?
2.
Well, you hooked it into a missile.
I only had an hour. So I went on a tour from 10 to 11 and then got on the air from 11 to 12 and then went to an art show and stuff, so.
That's quite an antenna.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'd seen it before, I'd read a whole bunch about it. And
What band were you on? 160?
7 megs.
Oh.
It's
It's 40 through 10.
yeah, it runs 6 megs up to 30 megs is what it's designed for.
Okay.
And it's
Yep.
a traditional disco.
Yeah, broadcast.
The cone is,
Oh, yeah.
the bottom of the cone is actually fairly high off the ground. A lot of them are close to the ground. This one is pretty high off the ground. This has a ring around the cone. But it's maintained by the Green Valley Amateur Radio Club down there.
There's no HOA in the neighborhood?
Well, it is a
That is
federal
sure is, I'm sure.
property.
Grand Valley.
Got granite water there.
I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the hams go there and just plug in to do their work.
Yeah.
There was a guy there when we pulled in, and I was very nervous about it. You know, here I'd flown down there, rented a car, had a rig and everything, and I go over and there's somebody there, and I know I have 60 minutes. But you know, I talked to him and he left right when I was ready to operate. So that was
usually go there all day, and if somebody else comes along, I let them do their thing for an hour or whatever. Nobody else stays there all day with me.
So you've been there as well?
Oh, yeah, several times. My daughter lives in Tucson.
Well, I guess the kids are down, they're still in school, right, when they're in the daytime, right? Yeah. Otherwise you'd be there.
That's worth a side trip if you're in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's by Tucson?
Yep.
It's south,
Tucson.
about 25 minutes. It's always a good idea to, use your tax dollar, because you paid for it.
Right.
Is that still maintained by the government? I thought that was a ham radio club that
No.
took care of that.
Yeah, the Green Valley Amateur Radio Club
Oh,
Right.
does the maintenance on it, although it is a National Historic Site. So it's actually, run by the feds, but they have.
Oh, it is.
part of the national park.
So it's kind of like, I guess it would be kind of like the Marine Station then,
Yeah.
KPH?
Yeah, like KPH, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, sort of.
yeah. Kind of the same
weapons.
Yeah, except with
If
nuclear
you have nuclear weapons, you should see that national disposal site. It's about 30 miles outside Vegas. Once a month, they have a bus tour, and you get to see all those things on those old movies where you see the buildings burn up and stuff. That's there. And then they take you to a place where there's all these craters, about 60 feet in diameter, for all the underground tests that they have. Put that on your bucket list. You'll be glad you did that.
Do you glow in the dark when you leave?
I don't know.
Do they show any of the equipment they use for boring those holes and everything?
Yeah, they do.
Those are impressive. Those
Yeah, they do.
They're like 6
Those things,
augers. that are
those
going
underground
across.
nuclear
Yeah.
plants are a half mile in the ground. And it's like, well, I don't know. They're really, really cool.
When I was younger, we used to go up on Mulholland, which is the mountain, if you can call it a mountain, that separates the Hollywood
Valley
from
and stuff.
the valley, yeah. And there were Nike missile launching stations up there. And we used to go up and climb in the missile silos and whatnot, and that was always pretty fun.
So were those for air defense?
They were to protect to protect from incoming missiles into
They
the.
went obsolete really fast. I think they're operational for maybe 3 or 4 years.
I'm
early
not sure
70s.
because Van Nuys, by the Van Nuys Airport, there's a Army Air Force base, and they still have operational support. Plus, there's a near the airport, not at the airport, but near the airport, there is a reserve base, and the entire base it's like a 2 football field size place where they have launchers as well, and they still maintain that. So I don't know exactly. I don't think there's Nike missiles in there anymore, but I have a feeling there might be something going on.
Yeah, they're up in Sutter Buttes as well, kind of protecting Beale Air Force Base.
Yeah.
Stuff. They were scattered all over the place.
Oh, yeah, they're up by Chico, I think.
Yeah, so, but that's still not as fun as when you go up to the ATT site with the old metal trash can lid, and you toss it up in front of the microwave dish and drop 20,000 calls at one time.
Yeah.
And then see your.
Not that you've ever done that.
No, but I may have been up there when
Someone else do that.
and then you see that trash can lid get hit by the energy and go flying off the canyon. It was, I might have seen that once or
1296
twice
or something.
or more, but I don't know. I could be mistaken. In any case, let me give you the Treasury report. So we've been collecting money for the April 8th CW beginners class. We're going to start a new class on the 8th. So people have been putting their money into the class. We haven't yet purchased keys or any supplies that we need, so the number will considerably drop. MFJ raised the price of the Morse code key by $5, but I maintained the class at the same price, so nobody had to pay extra for the class. It just means that we're a little tighter to the tooth than we were before. So it may show up as a good bump. Right now, I think we have about 8 people signed up, maybe.
18.
No, 8, not 18.
Oh, 8. Boy, what's happening here?
Well, you know, we've been through, I calculated over the last 6 years, and I've been through over 500 people. So,
Well, you got a lot of
You know,
repeats, don't you?
I don't have that many repeats. I may have 10 or 15 possibly. Unless you count Katie, then you can add another 8 in there. But, so probably 20 at the most out of almost 500 people. So we've covered all the way from the Bay Area up to, well, I guess I could say
Chico.
Oregon, but
Oh, yeah.
realistically, Chico, Red Bluff, that area, people were driving 4 hours to come down. We've had people from Grass Valley come in, so they're driving to come to the class, and we appreciate it. So in any case, the Wells Fargo account currently has $424.55, and that seems low. I'll have to look at that number and figure out what happened.
It was 5 something last time, 516. So what happened?
We must have paid for something. Oh, we
we
paid
must
Bob
have paid.
back for the, we paid you back for donuts and dinner for the QSO, or what was the party? The
Oh, yeah.
North American QSO party.
So what did now
Well, we paid your
427?
wife back anyway.
Oh,
You didn't get to see that. You spent the money, but she received it. So, you should have received an email telling you that you received money.
Oh, it went, yeah, it was,
It was 427.62?
424.55.
Oh, 55, okay.
424.55. So, the Wells, that's the Wells account, and, the PayPal account, we're showing 6,761.59. 67.61.59.
Got it.
And that totals out 71.86.14. And then, of course, we did have the expense for the erasable book that we can use for all the contests. We'll use that at least 3 or 4 times a year easily for the $25 or so we spent. I think it's worth it. And then we have, again, a few $100s worth of keys that we'll be purchasing. The PayPal grows real fast when people are putting $50 at a time into it. You know, you get 10 and 15 people signing up. It adds real fast. So that number will definitely drop next month or the month after when, actually I'll probably buy keys in the next 2 weeks because it take a week to get here. So hopefully we'll have everybody who's going to sign up signed up by, everybody who signs up will be signed up within a reasonable amount of time so that I can order enough keys. I like to buy an extra 2 or 3 keys. The club likes to have 3 keys on hand anyway, because when we go to Kids Day in the Park, or we go to the Eternal Flame event, we do our PR work, and that's what the kids are using to practice their Morse code that we teach them at the event. So the club usually has a stock of 3, and right now, I think that I think I only have those 3 keys available, so we'll have to purchase at least another 8 to 10 keys minimum. So that'll be coming real soon. Let's see, what else? So if you know anybody who wants to sign up, please get them signed up so that I can get that done. And remember, they don't need to be licensed in order to take a class to learn code.
So when's it start again?
April 8th, that's Wednesday, and that'll be from 7 to 9.
10 weeks.
10 weeks, yeah. Once a week on Wednesday. And then we also have at the church Wednesday Works, where you can come in at 5:30 and get a dinner And the dinner is always a main course, a salad bar, there's pizza options, coffee and dessert, and that's $6. So,
That's a pretty good deal.
yeah, it's a very good deal. So you're not gonna beat that deal, and if you do, let me know, because I'll come eat at your place. And the meals are cooked mostly by me and my wife, so they're like real good home-cooked meals. They're not just, some frozen thing. We actually make everything fresh.
And is it 5?
What's that?
That'd be at 5 o'clock?
5:30.
5:30 on the days of the class.
Yeah, 5:30's on Wednesdays. There might be 1 or 2 classes that there is none because either there's a school holiday, they usually break during school holidays. Easter break, I guess, is coming up,
Week
so.
up on the 8th, isn't it?
Yeah, so it might not be on that first week, but I usually announce it the first week and then the next week it's available. I think John's eaten,
Oh, I gotta be okay.
and you may have eaten there, haven't you?
No.
Oh, you haven't? Yeah, have you? Yeah, I don't know what you got when you were there, but, we did a chicken parm and we did homemade gyros and smothered pork chops, and they're real meals. They're not just, like I said, you're not going to just get a bowl of spaghetti. Although you may get a bowl of spaghetti, but
I
it
know
just,
you call them up, get some stuff from Marie Calendar. And
oh no,
Microwave.
this is not microwave food. Nothing goes in the microwave. It's all oven cooked or stovetop. So in any case, do check that out. Maybe. You don't have to take the class to eat the food. If you really wanted to just come for a Wednesday night meal, you can do that too.
Come for the dinner and
If
leave.
you live close enough and for the price, it's worth coming. If you show up much past about 5:45, it starts getting slim pickings because, I cook for 45 people, and once I hit about 5:45, I've gone through about 35. So you want to be there.
Students don't fall asleep with a full gut.
You know what? They have between 6 o'clock and 7 to take a nap. So they can come up in here and sleep while they digest, then wake up for the class. I suppose that would work, wouldn't it? Let's see. Anybody have any other business that we need to cover? I see Phil has something there that he'll show us along with the other things. Why don't you, since we're going to do a presentation, we'll fill up some time with that. So
Okay.
why don't you, before you do that, why don't you just tell us about what you've got there?
Sure. I brought in a QRP lab little rig here a year or so ago. Remember how much I said it was, $59?
Yeah, it was about $50. Of course, the case
Conversion receiver.
was $300.
Well, it took me 3 times as long to build the box as it did to build the radio. In any event, they came out with an amplifier to work with it. If you run this amplifier on about 18 volts, it's 50 watts. And if you run it off at 12, it's 25 watts, $27 for this amplifier. I'll pass that around.
That would be perfect for that KX2 that you've got.
It worked, but it's single band.
Oh, not a broadband tennis.
Well, they build a linear amplifier as well, but it's only 10 watts.
Can you tune it to a band that you choose, or is it?
It's set up, they give winding instructions, I think, on 40, 20, 30, 40, 20, 30.
Could you put something in the circuit board to pull those toroids out and put in new ones?
Sure you could.
So technically, you could keep them like crystals and just plug and play as
There's no
necessary.
reason you can't. This, you guys were here when we were talking about building an interface so you could use an HT to do CW. And so this is that interface. I finally got my boards in. The first shipment that I placed for these was 10 weeks ago. And somehow the Chinese post office lost the order. So I reordered the boards, and this is the second order that came in.
It was infected.
It was infected. But the idea behind this is, if you're doing simplex on 2 meters, full breaking, it's got a little key monitor built into it, And if you're doing repeater, you have to do push to talk because a repeater can't handle your keying speed, right?
No.
So, I haven't tested this yet, I just put it together today.
Well, it might be kind of slow.
I
on
have a
that.
Bofang, Phil, I can bring over.
Oh, I've got one as well.
Okay.
But Bofang sell, or you can buy aftermarket microphones that work with Bofang. You can get 2 of them for $15.
Okay.
So guys pair up and buy a remote speaker mic. So you have the speaker in the mic, in your mic, and you plug a cable out of here into the microphone. You put a jack in the microphone. So you have full break-in without modifying the rig. You just put a hole in that cheap microphone. And again, we'll see if it works out. As I said, built-in CW monitor, it's full sine wave, and these are gonna cost you $7. If anybody's interested in those.
Yeah, sign me up for 2. Yeah.
Plus the parts, right?
Well, see, that includes the parts.
Oh, really? The parts?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, sign me up.
Yeah, you know,
Let's make sure they work first.
Okay.
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the club will take 2, I'll take 1. The club needs
So
2.
2, 1, 2, and 1?
Yeah, because the club will use them for the class. The club will purchase 2 so that we can use them in the last few weeks of the
Think how you
class.
could use those in the park. One set of kids over one table.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we're done.
Well-
No.
I don't think we'd really be ready for that because the decoding time would be so long, not knowing any Morse code.
Yeah.
But for the class,
If you're a
after the,
master teacher, you
Be
can
good for
handle
class.
I do thank you for your confidence, but
However,
however,
So is the idea to use a local repeater?
You
No.
can.
you can, but not
That would
necessarily.
be audio, keying,
Yes.
not RF keying.
No,
It's,
okay.
yeah, it's modulated CW.
It's modulated
Yeah.
CW.
you're keying the tone.
Yeah, okay, so if you found a repeater owner who would let you.
You know, if you look at the FCC,
That's right.
CW is used
Anywhere.
anywhere.
No, I-
But you might piss off the
Yeah,
repeater.
that's what I'm saying.
True.
And they'll push
So,
a couple buttons.
This becomes a
Yeah,
PR issue.
But the greatest part about it is they probably don't know how to do CW anyway, so they'll have no idea who you are.
No, there's, well, the other thing
Well,
is
happens all
that
the
the
time.
repeaters are not used that much,
Well, that's
except
okay.
at commuting. And, you know, since we're members of N6NA anyway.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't
I'm
think
thinking
it's a problem.
about W1RH, he's a good friend of ours, he's QRQ, and he's fast, but he owns several repeaters, and I'll approach him.
Well, again, my suggestion to you is this: if you plan on doing that, work with the owners of the repeater
Right, right.
and say, we'd like to set up a time frame.
Yeah.
You know, every Wednesday night from 7 to 8 or whatever it is.
Right.
And they're generally very receptive about that.
Yeah.
What upsets me is it's nice and quiet, and then you get blasting through the repeater, and they don't know where it's coming from or who.
Chris, at
But
your
the
9
nice thing
o'clock.
about that, Phil, is that because
Chris,
it's a
9
handheld,
o'clock.
you go, this is
Put your hand up.
KB6GBY, I'm gonna be using CW for the next,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
20 minutes
That's
with
the
a
linear.
friend. If you guys need to, please feel
I'm
free to
sure
break
it's
in.
crazy.
You got
I'm
it.
sure Bob Lester.
It is.
Okay, yeah.
Don't do Chris Huber or somebody like that.
You have to use a cloth.
He'd be willing to give you a little time.
Wet the cloth.
That's crazy.
I'll inquire.
I've actually shown this to Chris. He and I
Okay.
were out playing golf the other day. But
Oh, I can
it'll
never-
be interesting to see how this comes off.
Okay, so
But
tell,
first we have to make sure it works.
so tell us, what are what is the switch?
If there's a little header there that's got 3 positions where you can put a little jumper between it.
Yeah,
One position, you're running, you're running full break-in.
Okay,
You put the jumper in the other position, you have to toggle that switch to go into the transmit.
okay,
And then, of course, when you go to receive, it's like the good old days, you know, when you had the old TR switch.
yeah. the
yeah,
old-
and I see this now
But you have
has
to
this,
do that with the repeaters, because you can't key a repeater
No.
at that speed.
No,
They're-
oh, not in full break-in, sure.
You can't, any kind of break-in.
Yeah, I suppose. But in full break-in, it would still transmit and the repeater would stay on hook for
Well,
whatever the
No.
delay is, right?
The receiver may not pick up the first hit. So,
You'd never be able to hear anything coming back the other way.
Oh, I see. Well, no, you would never try to have a full break-in QSO over a repeater, but you could keep it in the break-in mode and continuously transmit, and when you were done, just stop transmitting.
Well,
and
the way this is set up, it'll go into the receive mode the instant you're off the key.
Right,
But the repeater is still gonna be keyed up.
yes.
Right.
So for, as far as you're concerned though, as the transmitter, it doesn't matter if it's a repeater or not in
Yeah,
full
but
break-in.
the system won't.
Yeah, but you don't want the
No
finger
matter how
tripping
much
back.
you love the idea.
I'm assuming you've tried.
No,
Mike,
I haven't tried anything with it yet.
that modification that I made with that push button,
Yeah.
normally off push
Right.
button, that'd be a good thing to have for that switch, when you switch down.
As opposed to a
then you have the
3-volt.
button, and you could do that. And that
Why would
work.
you need a button?
Well, just simply because when you have to turn it off, you see what I'm
He's
saying?
saying instead of flicking the switch, having
flicking
a-
the switch,
having
so
a
sometimes
push
when
button.
Then you need two hands.
Well, you need two hands anyway, wouldn't you, to flip it? You have two hands, you don't use two hands with your.
Anyway, I'll let you know how it works.
Yeah, and then
I'll show
the
you.
pot here, what is the pot controlling?
That's to set the level of tone into the handheld.
Oh, okay,
You'll have to adjust that.
all right,
You don't
and
wanna
then,
overmodulate it.
sure,
But
because
make sure
it's,
your zero beat,
because it's an audio tone that's coming out. What is it set for?
I think I got it set at about 600 hertz.
Oh, okay,
Oh, that's good tone, yeah.
all right, that's good, yeah, I mean, if,
I'm pretty certain that's what.
hopefully it's not, is that adjustable or is that fixed
No,
by a
it's fixed.
resistor? Okay, so,
Don't
'cause-
get too picky.
no, but once you pass 600, you're getting annoying. All right, Chris, to your, 9 o'clock.
We can talk about annoying.
That's the idea, of making it going, so they pay attention. There.
Right. So, okay, great. Looking forward to getting those tested out. I do have a Bofang. And, gosh, if the club needed to buy one, it's only like, what, $25 now?
$23.95. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, they've become so inexpensive that, it's,
Just don't measure the spectral purity.
well, it's okay.
Right.
One other thing, Brian, I see you have added Alpha Uniform 6 November Tango,
Alpha Julia.
Alpha Juliet, okay. So congratulations to Brian, who has picked up his call sign now, so he's officially
Congratulations.
licensed.
Does he get to ride the donkey tonight?
So now, because you have a call sign, I will not only update the website with your call sign, but now I have a reason to print a new sign-in sheet. Because that's something to be proud of, that you're
Yeah.
licensed.
Well, thank you. I mean, it was, last time I was here, you told me to get on, ham radio, ham test.
Oh, hamtest.com, yeah.
I aced all 3 tests.
Yep, that thing is a great, great program. So you're extra class now.
I am now, yes.
Absolutely.
But I'm like the ire of so many of you gentlemen. I have amateur extra, but
Ham test.
I don't know shit. I passed the test. Ham
Yeah.
test online, fantastic.
Did you find though that hamradiotestonline.com site tried as hard as it could to not just have you memorize the questions, but to understand the
Yes,
answers?
it did. It was, like I say, I'm surprised that I'm looking around on maybe getting there's one website out there that has for, the vanity signs, and anytime you get on it, it kicks a question on there that's off the exams, and it's kind of like, wow, I actually did learn something. So
Brian, what's your call?
it is, AJ6 NT.
JT.
NT, November Tango.
November Tango.
Oh, entry.
Alpha
Yeah,
Julia
and
6.
you have a rig?
I have a rig, actually, that's another thing for because I actually had the amateur extra license before I even had a radio.
Ocean.
But I got a Icon 718
Okay.
and a Samplex 1235 power supply.
All right.
I didn't think I needed meters. From what research I did, it sounded like it just broke. They weren't accurate. They were always and then so that's why I was asking her about antenna. So now I need an antenna. And
Well, you came to the right place.
put it together. So, and then I'm signed Morse code class.
Yep.
So,
Guaranteed to get a different answer from everybody you ask on antenna.
yeah, well, you know,
That's just a given.
well, not only that, but you know, of course, if it's on the internet, it's true, right? You know, so you're flashing around all these websites and you hear somebody talk about,
Oh, yeah.
you know, it's such a fantastic rig, and then it's, oh, this is a piece of garbage, and the same thing.
I'm sorry, I was writing, I didn't hear you. Did you say you got a rig?
I do have the ICOM 718.
718, okay.
Yeah, that'd be a good start.
Is that the one you have?
Yeah, I have a 7.
That's the little black one,
Shot
right?
saber.
Did you buy it new or used?
I bought it new.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not married, so, you know, my finances are kind of like whatever
Well, the Elecraft K4s come out, and you know, if you want a second mortgage a house, if you have one, or you don't intend to buy one,
Well, love
you
your
can
money.
consider buying that or a car.
Yeah, or a car, yeah.
Or a car.
So anyway, so it was actually, that was a nice experience, and that was a great thing, that ham test online.
Yeah.
I, 60 days from basically knowing nothing to amateur extra.
Yeah.
But I averaged at least probably 2 hours a day study. I worked for it.
Oh, okay, good. Excellent.
I did work for it.
You went in and sat down and took all 3 at one time?
No, I didn't want to screw myself like that. You know, I got novice.
Right. Or a technician, yeah.
Technician, excuse me, got tech, then I got general. Because it was interesting, the learning curve. From tech to general only took me about 14 days.
Okay. What did you find to be the hardest test?
Actually, well, because of the amount of information, the amateur extra, just the amount of information. It's,
Yeah.
They pull from 714 questions, a 50 question test.
Right.
And they pull from 715 questions. The fact that because of the knowledge that I gained taking the technician class, I think that's why the general went so much faster.
Okay.
But then they stepped up and the questions, a lot of, what I would do, I would take any of the questions that I missed, I'd write them on flashcards.
Right.
And then while I was at work, I'd go through the flashcards.
Okay.
And if I met, well, some of them, you know, particularly when you don't know much, you know, capacitive inductance.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, you know, my stack at work, I might have, one of the questions I might have 4 or 5 times in there because I missed it 4 or 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd get maybe an hour and a half at work flashing through the flashcards, and then I'd come home at night and anywhere from 15 minutes to 4 hours.
You know, it's a good thing you're not married.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Your wife would have killed you.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
The lady in my life, she's extremely tolerant, but
We'll find out now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
See how long that lasts. Wait till the code oscillator comes home.
no, actually for Christmas she gave me
Wait until the antenna started going.
Oh,
yeah.
We even love
She gave me $300 for a radio.
Yeah.
What the hell is that?
She goes, I have no idea what they call it.
Especially when they get to hang their underwear on.
Yeah, right. The
antennas.
laundry line. That's what you tell her. It's a laundry line. Or you do like I did with my homeowners association. We had a small tree and I tied it to the tree and then I said it was to hold the sapling up so it wouldn't blow over in the wind.
The bird perches, because in her yard, she's
Friend
probably
of
about
mine,
7
W6X,
bird feeders. So.
in a homeowners association.
Yeah.
He took his beam and he hung it up on top of one of those wooden jungle gyms for his kids.
Oh, there you
The
go.
homeowners association bought
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
that makes sense.
But if you know anybody who's wanting to get that thing was worth every penny. I forget what it cost. It was like maybe $24 for. And you have 6 months to use it. $24
Right.
for.
You do have to pay for each class separately though.
Yeah, they'll give you
Get a
they'll knock
discount.
some percentage off if you file.
Oh,
You
okay.
can go back and study, and it was a good deal.
Yeah,
Like said.
I love that course. It's a really good course. I find it not only gets you 100% on every test, but it also teaches you as you're going through.
Yeah, like I said, I was surprised. I come up and like I'll flip through some questions. Like, well, I still retain that. You know, I don't retain as
Right.
much as I should.
Great.
Yeah. Well, it'll be like college. As soon as you actually start putting it to use, you'll find that most of it's obsolete and what's not you've forgotten anyway. So
Well, that was another thing on the pressure because this June
They changed the question
changing
pool.
all the questions
That's
on
right.
the
Yeah.
amateur extra, so it's like, all right, do I wait till they change it, or do I jump on? And I was actually, I was pleasantly surprised when, I took the test, and they're kind of the vets there were like, you know, I don't know, none of these things are lining up, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And when you have the, like, got the answer thing turned upside down, anyway, so it's like, yeah, you've done them all right.
Well, congratulations. That all
Thank
came
you.
very quickly.
I was on a 4-day high at least.
Now,
Yeah.
you'll take the class.
Get on the air.
Get on the air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I gotta get an antenna. I got an
Right.
antenna.
Well, that's easy to set. Wire is always easy to set up.
Yeah.
Even if it's 10 feet in the air, you'll still do better
Oh,
than
yeah.
no feet in
You'll
the
get
air.
something.
Yeah.
But,
At least talk to Chris.
yeah, at least
Work him on a coat hanger.
there you go. That's true. So,
Oh my God, yeah.
yeah, you'll take the class and then you can say you're a real ham when you can actually do CW.
Well, that's all, I've actually, you gave, last time I was here was several months ago.
Yeah.
You gave me some stuff to study on.
Right,
I kind of pushed that aside just because
sure, and
I
that's
don't want to learn
fine.
wrong. I
No,
can wait.
That's fine. Come to the class with no knowledge and you're gonna learn. That's the whole point.
That's kind of my intent.
Yeah,
is I-
so you're
I'll
fine.
take it.
That's what I expect of everybody. I've actually got, 2 13-year-olds signed up. I don't know if one of them will show up, but I know for sure that one of them will. And then, of course, my daughter will take the class again. She still knows everything, but her copy speed's horrible because she never practices.
Well, she-
So,
He probably gives 15 already anyway, right?
well, she can send at probably 15. She can bang them out.
He's
But,
banged up, can't copy.
But the copy is probably like around 8 words a minute. It's real shaky.
You have to practice everything.
Yeah, and the problem is she doesn't get on the air, she doesn't have a license, and she doesn't want to come in when I'm in there to do it as a control operator. But
Oh, yeah.
she knows that I tested her day before yesterday as she was going up the stairs. I said, "What's an A?" And then
Oh,
she
there you go.
said, "The
That's
first
way
letter of
to
the alphabet." And I said,
Yeah,
"No,
not what I
what's,
mean."
what's an A?" So we went through, and I think she got her X and her P backwards. Actually, she passed the test of what's an X, da-da-da-dit. What's a P? Oh, X is da-da-da-da. You know,
That's a
she
correct
knew as soon as I asked her the question of the opposite. And then she totally forgot K for a minute. I don't know how,
I
but she
forget
did.
K.
But, yeah, so she still has 100% retention from 6 months ago, and she's done nothing with it since then, except for like when we're driving in the car and she happens to have her oscillator with her and she starts talking to me while I'm driving, and everybody else is sitting there listening, trying to figure out what we're saying. So for her, that's kind of fun because her sister can't understand it. But
Which is typically harder, receiving or transmitting.
always receive, it's going to be more difficult because you have that time between hearing it and processing it in your head, and by the time, it's like dominoes, by the time you catch that first domino falling, it has already hit the second one and they're all going down. So once you miss one letter or 2 letters, then it's like a domino, you cannot catch up. So I'll teach you in the class, what do you do to discover when you've lost it, what do you do to get back on track?
It really,
So that's one of the, there's some hints that tell you when it's time to get back on the train and
see,
start
like me, I
writing
can
again.
run the net, go to sleep and wake up and,
Yeah, well, I used to be able to do that too, where I could,
I did it the
I'll
other
be
night.
transmitting and I'll fall asleep and I'll wake up and I'm still sending. So, but that takes a while to get that sleepy. So but you'll learn. That's
Well,
good.
I'm excited. I'm really anxious.
Yeah, you got to do the homework though, but it sounds like with your test, you did the job. And you'll have video and you'll have audio files that you can work with, so you're not going to just be sent home and not know what to do. All right, whose turn was it to snack us
My
tonight?
turn.
Art, thank you very much for bringing in snacks. There's water, I'll fill it up again. That's pure Carmichael water that's filtered, so don't be afraid of any viruses or bacteria, Dave.
Yeah,
You'll be
with the
okay to
chlorine?
drink the water.
oh, that's why I had to call.
All right, so let's just take 5 minutes or so just to stretch your legs, and then we'll come back and Phil has a presentation for us on the on a sloper design that he's come up with. And this is kind of in continuation with our last month's Smith chart, how to read a Smith chart, because he's gonna show us some Smith chart. I imagine there's some in there, right? So you'll understand.
Can't live without Smith.
Yeah, hopefully you at least read the newsletter last month, because it detailed everything, probably even more detailed than I did it when I
Pretty detailed,
did the
yeah.
presentation. So if you didn't read the newsletter, you may still be lost. If you didn't get the newsletter for some reason, let me know, and I'll send you last month's newsletter again, and then you can catch up. And then this month's newsletter will, of course, have Phil's presentation in it. So that series will continue. Next month is the April Fool's bogus story contest that John hosts every year. So you want to start writing your bogus story contest.
Ham-related bogus story.
Yeah, ham-related bogus story. It doesn't have to be, more than a page. You just, whatever you want to read out, something humorous if you can find your way to have some humor. And then, like John said, ham radio related. And there is a prize.
Coronavirus thing with it.
There is a prize at the end of the day for that, and that's the bogus story contest, or the contest trophy, which is, and you can go to the website here, and you can also see the trophy and read all of the past stories so far. And the idea behind the trophy is, once you win the trophy, then you make some sort of modification. You'll see here, Carol won it one year, and she went wild with it, and she actually put a transmitter in it.
It works.
And
It
it
doesn't
works.
quite get the first 45.
There's
It's
the
a little
circuit
below
she
there.
put in. If Phil ever wins, I can't wait to see
Oh my
what goes
goodness.
inside. It'll have a 25-watt amplifier in there.
Yeah, put that one on there.
Yeah. So,
Right.
if you click here, you can read the stories of the past. And John, it looks like John, you're holding on to that trophy now then.
He's hanging on to it.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
if you want to read John's story. Right.
Modify it still.
Okay, well, you have a month. So here's John's story, and then of course there's even some pictures in there. Chris won the year before that. Carol was then 2 years ago, and Carol's and John's last story, they're really funny. So
They were good, yeah.
Chris's story read more like an advert. It was, just an advertisement.
It was.
But, it was clever enough that it won the contest, so. And I think I had one in here somewhere. Oh, Charles won.
Yeah,
And
right.
then so this started in 2013.
You won
so-
one, didn't you?
Yeah, 2013.
Yeah.
So here we are in 2020, and we're still going strong.
Going 7 years.
So
Yeah.
definitely get some ideas about what you want to write for a story by reading the other ones. Maybe they'll spark something in you. And then basically we just read them aloud. And if you're too shy to read your story aloud, then bring it in and one of us will read it for you. But it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's easy to read what you have written on the paper. Even if you hold it to your face like this and no one can see you. That'll be fine too. But you get a chance to win the Bogus Story trophy. So, all right, let's, like I said, stretch your legs, take a 5 minutes, 10, and we'll come back and we'll see what Phil has for us.
So Mike, on the membership page situation,
No.
Yeah,
what do you think we need to do on my,
it's done.
You already fixed it?
Well, I don't know what to do about Windows 10.
oh, so Windows 10 is just not gonna work?
I don't know. It works on some machines, but not on others.
Health food.
Okay,
So-
so I should get it on my phone.
So let's see.
So how does it fit?
If I go to members.
How's still ticking?
Yeah. It works good. It works good.
Here somewhere. There you are. Let's see what happens.
Right idea.
Yeah, see, on this Windows 10 machine.
Much better with it than without, I'll tell you that.
And it's because of
They're all
It
adjusted
says
back on your bike?
refusing.
Yeah, I do ride every day,
That's
I
why I
go
did it
in,
on
it's-
sick.
But
I go in
it's
and,
possible it will reload, or it'll load after a while.
let me see if I can get
look at it.
Read your statistics?
Yeah, exactly.
And I have,
We have enough money in the club's treasury to order everything for.
Have you ever had a heart
It is.
beat with 37?
We could make it a club station.
Oh, that would be fun.
I've been running
Use it in
pretty
field
steady in
department.
the high
Yeah, we
50,
could.
low 60.
And that's what we can do.
that, yeah. A long time.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it'll be all
It's
right.
not, it's not the newest one, but, you know, the thing that you coveted when you.
2 months
yeah,
radio.
yeah, when you were a teenager, you
And, you know, learning all the
All
levels of
What do you
music,
think, Dale?
they would just be overwhelmed. It's hard
Some of
enough
that,
now
you know, that
to get the CSPs.
If you had like 8 stations, it could have.
What would happen is, let's say you're out golfing, you walk a 100 yards to the next hole, halfway through it, all of a sudden your heart rate will drop.
So that's
You know,
another.
and you have to sit down, wait for things to
I already have. It doesn't sound very good at all.
It isn't, it is awful, you will seek out help if you have that problem. You will, it is, it's
So,
unbelievable.
you heard me on Tuesday night?
Brachycardia.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, they
Put it this way, the guy called me
It's
up
like
on
the
Monday,
9:30.
Yeah, I just, I just got.
well, we got 2 days.
Yeah, what kind
May
of traffic
never-
went through this?
Christmas
Yeah,
Eve,
you know,
and the
we'll
27th,
try to-
and the other,
Yeah, you know, who knows?
I would have to
Probably
wait
not.
another month.
Yeah.
I said, the
But you know-
27th.
Check-in.
And he couldn't, and I told him, the only day was open was Christmas Eve, I was taking out. Yeah, you will seek out
It's
help.
called understanding antennas for non-technical problems.
Oh, really?
And they'll tell you how to get a dipole up and get it going and the ends out there.
I did purchase that, ARL. And I think you can just go in and have that.
This is real
actually
simple,
have,
how to get you started.
Yeah,
a
yeah.
disc.
So what is that?
What I've been doing.
Understanding antennas
Well,
Look at like.
no, it isn't, it
From
was
the
designed for 40
non-technical
meters,
hands.
so the disc basically is, 30 feet across.
And it's not like the ARRL handbook, will tell you everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, it has
It's-
eight radiating
yeah.
elements and then
This
it
is
has
just
a wire that goes
Something
around.
to get you started, and
The
it's
color
free
was just gonna be,
on the
you know,
internet, you
wire,
just Google that.
another 8
Oh, well,
wires.
you told me about it.
Coming
Okay.
around, about 30 degrees, and they have to be a little bit longer.
So I'm kinda, like I said, I don't know.
Basically, how to get an antenna, and a year from now, you might have an idea, a different one is better, you might have a different one, but.
Well,
You can also
Kids
I have
stuff out of the way.
And
They'll
they'll
still
get
have some
some
of the
here.
stuff there.
150-foot tall redwood in front of my house.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, and I know, but it's
But I mean,
unfortunately,
they work as
the way
good
my
as
house is
commercial,
set
so
up,
that's
the
why they are. You know, I mean, this is broadband, they're nothing magic,
I don't like
except,
that.
So I got a
you
couple,
know,
I got
broadband,
TV up
you
front,
don't need a
to
tuner.
try to get any height.
Low angle
I can kind of
radiation.
fool around, I know that the
All
tree,
that
I can,
Inside.
if I go 40 feet, I know I can hit at least 65 feet.
Full band.
Exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, it's, you know, that or like I said, I'm gonna, I already have
40-meter antenna, you need twice that, it's on an 80-meter.
Yeah, I think with my limitations, I'm gonna have to give up.
Or,
You don't have to size of that much.
put coils on the end of it.
For one sketch, there's an antenna.
I have an idea for my,
Tuner doesn't make up for it being too short.
I wonder if there's something.
Devin, I
we're talking that you want to
So tuner works basically good if you have like an 80-meter dipole,
You wanna get
80 meters and higher.
And it was 15.
I have an idea for a mount meters
Across the side of the house. And the height of that thing was like
and put up, because I wanted to be it for probably the next 5 years.
150 meters.
Base is huge. If this is
So
a
160,
wall,
you could lay
this is
your
the
guy
game of the house.
Just lay it on there.
And you buy a big.
Yeah, you could.
Make one hell of it. It'd be perfect field for that.
Yeah, those were some amazing.
There's nothing that wrong with this.
This will be reinforced.
Yeah, weird.
And this piece here
Last year,
would be a slate that slides in the other one. Through holes, so it doesn't tilt.
and just going across the countryside.
That's kind of what I'm thinking of.
Seeing those
Non-guide support.
actually, they just realized how long
bay or something.
Yeah, but then again, that's the whole thing, it's either gonna be a vertical, like similar
It's
to the
a,
or something like that. Or I just run the same post, but I run a
Where we landed the ship,
six
it was about 7 miles inland to get to Ephesus.
it's a frame
And
that.
you go through the rooms, and so these huge
Little I know.
And they're both coming
that
from.
look like.
That's a good place to start.
Yeah, definitely.
But those were
Yeah, it's a secure site, so it should be.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
make sure we don't go to.
Of course, like
sleep.
everybody else, I want to be able
I wonder
to,
if that's what it is.
160
They
meters
cut down
and
the tree
had to run
to
perfect.
heat the water,
So
to
now
warm
we're
the
on
houses.
science.
And they
Yeah,
used the
that's
hot
still-
water in the
But the
room.
tuner won't make up for being too short.
Only
Yes,
two.
run
They had taken down so many trees,
That's-
So you
that
need
the
a
whole, that whole
But
inlet.
it doesn't
is
have
so-
to be
so
necessarily
thin.
in a straight
And that's
line.
why it's now 7 miles in.
Droop it down, things
Well,
like that.
And they had an amphitheater there.
Yeah.
But don't try to go too
Seated
short.
something like 80,000
Well, no,
people.
because I could
In fact,
easily,
Elton John
from the redwood
held a
tree,
concert
walk
there
around
for
the
a
The
year.
club net is on
So
eighty.
you go-
I
what-
don't know. I
It was a
honestly
church.
don't know.
Was it Roman?
It's something
Yes.
to do with
but I need 100
Zed,
Just remarkable stuff.
130 feet.
not allowing the connection.
Yeah, totally.
If I run put
Hey,
a
it's
flag
a
pole
nice one. In
on the corner
England,
of my property on the
the
street.
standard living of the
Oh,
world
yeah,
is
Howard.
was.
You can always
Now,
turn
see,
it
the reason that Howard's works,
Well, you
is
have one pole
because
and then you
Howard
go down
hosts
to
his
a
own
fence
site.
post or something.
And no one stopped at the British
Oh, that's
were
Howard.
But
That's
even
how
the,
you-
barbarians.
So what you're seeing
Barbarians.
is
I don't
Howard's
know.
site.
Don't tell the
So
queen.
if you had.
Lake
a
runs
web
off
page,
one.
I could put it on
No,
the
it was a
web.
bad joke.
Bad joke,
You
yeah.
want a web page
Well,
somewhere?
because in case the pole falls over.
You
Power
The
line.
bus driver
Yeah, you
wanted
gotta
to
get
get
this far enough
through.
That's what I'm saying, and I know I can get 40 feet on it, where
You know what, that makes me wonder,
and be 60
maybe-
feet straight away from the tree.
this might be a way we
In
can.
any event, as we enter
Maybe
Rome,
there's
he says,
some
we're now leaving
Yahoo
civilization.
or
I no
Google
longer have
hosted sites, you know, where you can just put up
Now
a
leaving
basic
civilization.
site, and then anybody who wants a web page.
But if you go too
all
short,
they
try
have
to
to do
go on
is
the lower
either build
band.
it themselves and change it whenever they want, and then I just have to put it in my phone
That
for
pan
Like an 80 meter, you can use everything.
whatever that.
Just use open wire line instead of.
Years. And
It's
it's
great.
like,
Oh,
it's really
better.
cool, that's
Cost
all,
more.
I've always wanted to smile. That lights the thing up.
Yeah.
Well, let's do a quick web
All
search.
of those,
See- Let's see if,
That's a better way. Yeah, that promotes.
Then you get multi-band.
free website.
Or you get fancy and do a fan
Really
control where you have separate wires for each one, all tied to the same one.
And we can't fix
Try
Wi-Fi.
Squarespace, I don't think that's a try.
Oh, we can.
These are
They won't,
assets,
they don't have, you know, it's like we want
Put you on the
point
air.
fingers.
They go-
Are you preaching open line here?
99 cents a month, well, the club could even
But you
pay
use
for
the
that,
multi-band.
$12 a
Because
year.
basically on the.
Let's see what else.
I'm already
The
probably
band that is
paying
not cut
between
for,
what I
you're
pay
gonna have
Google,
highest
Microsoft, and
Yeah,
Apple.
With coax.
I'm sure I'm already paying, I just gotta reconfigure what
Coax.
I'm paying.
Coax, yeah.
Open wire line.
Here's
I don't care.
Infinity
Right over
Free.
loss.
Oh, Site Google, great for
Use
personal and
that
small
to the
business
tuner,
websites.
And
Let's
then
see
that's
what,
great.
I can't believe that's free though.
Then you can do, if you get an 80 meter dipole up, you could work, 80 through 10. Or if you get 160 up, I have an inverted L for 160. I actually get
Single
160.
shared hosting, which is fine, you don't need
But I don't have
any.
room for a dipole.
One website, one email account,
Inverted L.
limited bandwidth, who cares? You know, for the amount of clicks you're getting. So that would
Well,
be
this is
cool.
80.
Who's
A
that?
lot of times in the evening, the 80 is the only thing that's got signals on it.
Oh, that's the hosting where,
So 80 is a good band to
oh,
be
that's
able
the
to get
99
on.
cent. I thought it said.
But apparently in my
99
neighborhood, it
cents.
kind of doesn't matter what I'm doing.
Alright, nothing a month
Who
for
pays
this
the
one.
mortgage, you or them?
Yeah.
Well, no, I understand it.
10
I understand
gig,
that, yeah.
Wow, that's huge.
And,
And you get a whole
But you
gig of
don't have
space.
16 hours. Get your
So
own.
CCNR, the neighborhood.
I would
still
say,
loaded with the whole TV
go
area.
look
Yeah.
at,
Unfortunately, it used to be more online.
go poke around, let's see what the Google one is.
Yeah, Google will be already very
Great for personal and small.
Well, I didn't.
Great free website for
you
your
know where,
business.
I bet you I already pay Google
CR college?
to have a website, and I don't even know.
Oh, yeah.
That part?
Yes.
You
Yeah,
bet.
live right down Centerville
Yeah, that's
Road.
one right up, okay, Centerville Road.
Yeah, I actually live just down the
Let's see,
street.
limitations, styling options are limited.
So that's
Very
Green
limited.
Park?
At
Right,
Stretching
that part,
Post.
No custom
uh,
CSS, you're not gonna be doing that.
And like I said, my neighbor,
Chest of drawers, all that stuff.
I've known
which are
her
enough.
for 40
Yeah,
years.
you might look into this one and see
Mm-hmm.
what,
She was married to my oldest friend, so any
there's
issues.
nowhere to
Won't be an
click to
issue.
go to the site. Does it say, oh, it's just
moves.
sites.google.com, let's just go to.
She, no, she'll be leaving feet first. She's
I
not,
think
she's
a lot
not.
of vehicles are not right now.
Oh, so it's part of your Google,
Yeah, I already have all that.
so
Sure, I
there
might
you
have
go.
it. I
So,
might have it.
yeah, if you have a Google
I
account,
did.
then you just create a site
You're
within your Google account. That's it, that's the way to go.
Alright,
But I have to see if they'll allow iframe also.
I did go out on
So
that.
make something real simple.
okay, just to
And
test
then
it.
show me the link to where it is, I'll throw it in your iframe, and if it pops up, you're good to go. I would think that they'll do it, that it'll work.
You know, it's
So, yeah,
roughly the mileage wise is
good deal.
kind of the same as how it works. Kind of hampered there. Only other thing I could use for that around the neighborhood, and that gets questionable where I'm riding.
Yeah.
Wouldn't ride on Madison Avenue.
All right, so, thank you to those online who waited for us. We still have 2 viewers, that's nice. Phil, you wanna come up here to do your presentation? I don't have
I do.
any clicker
I
button.
do.
All right. So as Phil approaches, I can click for you if you want. It's up to you.
Sure.
All right, let me
I'm
get,
gonna have you click back and forth a couple of times to get into this.
let me pull this one off and we'll. Actually, probably get rid of both these, but just for the sake of putting it over here. I can figure out where it is. There it is. Okay. All right, let me broadcast that for them. So.
We've got the video switching going on here apparently.
Yeah.
Tell me when you're ready.
As soon as you see that, we should be good to go. We'll see if that worked. Yeah. Okay. Supposed to do it. There we go. That should be good. All right.
Okay, I was talking with Mike one night, and we were talking about antennas. Brian brought up the topic of antennas. We all have very similar issues. There never seems to be enough space, a way to get things up high. There's restrictions in your neighborhood about what you can have. And he mentioned that he had a 100-foot tree in his backyard. So I got to thinking, well, what can we do to get him on 80 meters off of this 100-foot tree? Click the button if you would, please, sir. We haven't clicked.
Yeah.
There you go. So, N6MQL has this 100-foot tree. I want to set him up on 80 meters at 3.54. The neighbors don't want to see what's going on. Just hit the,
Yeah, when you're ready, hit space bar.
okay.
You'll see it on the screen up there.
Screw it, neighbor.
And one of the things about any of these antennas is sometimes you need matching devices. And matching devices are typically a combination of coils and capacitors, or they're special transformers, and we like to avoid that if at all possible. And I had an idea about taking a classic J-pole antenna. Did I go through 2 slides?
You can hit the back or the forward or back arrow. That'll bring you back and forth. On the right hand side, I believe, down
Oh.
the bottom.
Oh, I guess I got the slide in a different place.
Just use this. That's the first one, right?
Yeah.
There's the second one. Did you?
Okay.
There's the third one.
Oh, well, anyhow, since I don't have a 100-foot tree in my backyard, I've got a chimney up about 20 feet. I thought I'd use my chimney, and instead of doing it on 80 meters, I'll do it on 20 and see if this idea works. Space bar. So, you guys recognize this? This is called a J-pole antenna. They're used on 2 meters everywhere. the first thing you have to recognize is the shortest antenna electrically is a half wavelength that will resonate. And sometimes you put a coil along with what element you have. There's a lot of ways to get electrically to a half wavelength. But that's the shortest thing you can have that will resonate. So in this picture, we see this half wave antenna. It happens to be in a vertical plane, but it doesn't really matter from the point of resonance. And then you've got this funny looking contraption down here. And this is the way they actually make these antennas. Typically, they're made with 1/2-inch copper tubing. So they have a shorted piece across here, they got this piece up here, and then they have this piece here that ties into this half wavelength antenna. This is actually a 1/4 wavelength matching stub, or matching section. So I said, why can't we apply this to Mike's 100-foot tree and build him an 80-meter antenna? Because the antenna, half wavelength's roughly 130 feet, right?
Right.
So here's the idea. Now I'm doing this on 20, recognize, instead of 80. So a half wavelength on 20 meters is about 33 feet, and I need a 1/4 wave matching section, which in this case worked out to be a little over 14 feet. And so what you do is you take this 1/4 wave section and you tap it at a certain point, and that will give you 50 ohms. So one end is shorted, the other end is open straight to your 1/4 wave, and somewhere in between you've got this feed point where you put your coax. And the beauty of this is you can move this feed point all the way down here if you had some 10 ohm coax, or you can take this feed point, move it up here if you had some 500 ohm coax. They'll all work. You just pick the tapping point that matches your feed line. So far, so good?
Yeah.
And so I went to make some calculations, and I used this number 1005 divided by the frequency times a 1/4 wavelength times the velocity factor of the coax, and that's where I came up with this 14.25 feet. The only problem is this shouldn't be 1005, it should be 986 point something or 983.6.
What does that number represent?
Actually, this is for a full wave loop instead of a full wavelength transmission line. So in any event, if you do this, and I built an 80-meter matching section out of what I used, which happened to be TV twin or TV coax, the total loss of that matching section is 0.26 dB. You'll never even notice it. So let's fast forward to the real calculation. And here I've changed the way this looks because it's actually how we put it together. So this length, again, turned out to be 33 feet. I used the right number. It should have been 13.95 feet. So what you'll find when I built this antenna, it doesn't resonate on 20 meters. It resonates a little bit higher, as I recall. And this is the antenna that I used. This is the matching section. I used a couple of connectors, tied them together. This is the feed point. One end ties to this to the actual radiating element, where this thing is. I'll pass this along so that you can see how I put it together. The reason I used RG6, I had some. You could do it with 58 or 59 or RG8 or 213 or whatever you want. It doesn't matter, it's just a transmission line. It doesn't have to be open ladder line, it doesn't have to be copper tubing, as long as it's a 1/4 wave transmission line.
Can we pass that up one more time, John? I just want to show people online. Well, I've got the camera up. Just hold that up to the camera. Here.
To the camera?
Yeah, just give them a...
So this is the actual feed point, and right down here on this end, this is about a foot long, is where the shorted end is. And then this goes up to where your radiating element is. This is the end of the 1/4 wave section, and this is the 20-meter radiating element. So, I made the corrections. I know I screwed up. Let's move on. Quarter wave transmission lines are one of the greatest tools available to you when you're dealing with antennas. If you take one of Mike's antenna analyzers and you measure this open transmission line, the quarter wave line, it'll look like it's a dead short. If you take that same piece of transmission line and you short the far end and you measure it with his antenna analyzer, it looks like an open circuit. Doesn't make any sense, does it? If you take that same piece of transmission line and you short one end, you can move this tap back and forth and you can get any impedance you want between dead short and open circuit just by where you put that tap, which makes a perfectly adjustable tap system to match your feed line.
Where's the
Is everybody familiar with that?
Oh, it's over. Yeah. It's a
Quarter
stub
wave stubs?
match. Stub match.
So, here is that little piece of coax, that piece of RG6 that I measured. This is the Smith chart circle. And if you recall from our discussion last month, anything that's on this plane is pure resistance. If it's higher up here, it's an inductive load. And if it's lower down here, it's a capacitive load. And if you look at where this dot is, where I'm measuring is exactly resonant. It's not too long, it's not too short. This happens to be the resistance curve, and the resistance curve at this very same frequency tells me that the impedance of this piece of transmission line, 1.7 ohms at 13.55 megahertz. That's exactly that piece of coax that you're looking at there. Okay? So now what I've done is I've moved the tap from the open piece of feed line. I've moved it up that, what was it, 13 or 14 inches?
Yeah, 14.
And now you see that this resistance is up at 89.99 ohms. So you can tell that by moving that tap back and forth, the measurement changed. It's 90 ohms to move it up that far. But I haven't hooked the element to it. I haven't hooked the radio element.
So you could basically make a tuned antenna out of a stub match.
Well, the stub match is not an antenna.
No,
It
but
will
you can
not
make
radiate.
no, it won't radiate, but you can tune it to 50 ohms. So that
Yes.
so you have an input impedance at exactly where you want it to
Yes. So here's this thing in the air. This goes up to my chimney. This is hanging off the tree over there. This is where the feed point is, and that's that ugly connection I showed you. I also made another one at 10 meters. Only I used some real fittings on this one, and I'll pass this along so that,
be. And show it to the camera before you do.
well, absolutely. This is a piece of plastic that I put a little compression fitting together. So we feed just one element. There's nothing attached to the shield of this coax. Radiating element for 10 meters. This happens to be 3/4 inch, or a 3/4 wave matching section to make the feed point long enough for what I was going to do with it. Anything that's an odd multiple of quarter wavelength works exactly the same. So 3/4 wavelength feed line, and then a half wavelength radiating element on 10 meters. These are the real adapters to be using with the RG6. They make T's. They make a connector to go from type F fittings to SA239, and that's in there.
Why do you prefer an F connector?
I had a whole big roll of it. It seemed like something to play with.
They're cheap.
Again, they're cheap.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
And like I said, 0.26 dB loss for a matching section on 80 meters How can you beat it? And it's lightweight.
Yes.
So this chart you can't see too well, but this is the SWR curve of that entire antenna on 20 meters. So I was curious if the antenna matching section had to be a flat length of line, or if I could coil it. It's coax, I ought to be able to coil it, right? So the first measurement, which is trace 1, the antenna resonated at 13.41 megahertz. Remember, my numbers were screwed up when I started this. And the SWR was 1.22 to 1. That's not bad. Then I took that very same piece of coax and I coiled it. And now the resonance point dropped to 13.36 and the SWR dropped to 1.08. Does it work?
Yep.
Works pretty well, doesn't it? So, the first part of this was whether or not we can make an antenna resonant, feed it on the end. That way you hide the feed line. Your neighbors don't see this big hunk of coax hanging off the middle of your antenna. It becomes less obtrusive, and probably no one will ever know, which is a very big point in this day and age. So now let's figure out how the antenna should perform. So to do this, the second part, I brought in EZ-NEC. Any of you play with this stuff? Antenna pattern?
Yeah, and that comes in the back of your ARRL antenna handbook. You get a free copy of that in the back.
Yes.
Or you paid for the program and you get a free manual.
So this is the antenna, Mike's antenna. This is his 100-foot tree. This is the antenna, about 130 feet long. And that's, you know, a physical model of what it looks like. Let's see how it performs. So here it is. This is the pattern. Nice, big, voluminous pattern. And they're telling me that the maximum radiation point is at 30 degrees, which is right there,
So it's a
which
nice,
sounds pretty good.
that's a nice lowish fire angle, so it should be a decent DX antenna.
Should be,
Should be.
but there's a lie here.
Hmm.
Watch what happens when I make it 90 feet.
Wow.
All of a sudden, everything's going where?
Straight up in the air.
Straight up. And so I'm thinking, what have I done wrong? So I went in and there's another antenna modeling software called 4NEC2. It looks the same, doesn't it? The patterns look the same. What you'll find is this pattern is so symmetrical that just the slightest deviation makes what they call the maximum point look weird. How do you move this thing back?
Back arrow.
Oh, this back arrow. So this is 4NEC2. This is at 90 feet. This is at 100 feet. They look the same, don't they? It's just the slightest little difference. There's a slightly bit more radiated here than there is here. In other words, there's no real difference between all three of those. So I got to thinking, what would happen if instead of having this antenna in this horizontal plane, the more we move towards vertical? Watch this. Here's the antenna in the vertical plane. Your tree grew 30 feet overnight.
Oh, wow.
So now we're here, and I've got this pulled out just so far as it gets past the branches, right? There's your radiation pattern.
Wow.
Huge difference, isn't it?
It's like a beam.
It is a 13-degree angle, radiation angle.
Yeah, that's crazy good.
So it really does matter what you do with these antennas. The sloper kind of thing, the more vertical you get it, the lower the radiation angle.
Does that hold true for most slopers?
Well,
I know
yes,
this is a
but see,
modified
most
slope.
slopers, the guys are using the tower as 1/2 of the radiating element. Most slopers are only a quarter wavelength long.
Right, yeah.
This is a half wavelength radiating element. You don't have to work against any counterpoise.
Right.
Did you notice that? There's no counterpoise.
Yeah.
You don't need a ground system.
Is the open shielding on the coax that feeds it being used as a radiating element?
No.
It's not. Okay.
If you look at Maxwell's fourth equation, because I was curious about this, I got to looking at it. Maxwell's fourth equation states that if you put energy into a resonance system, there's no need for a counterpoise.
I see.
The counterpoise will act as one half of the radiating element in the case of most verticals or most slopers. You don't need a counterpoise. You don't need a ground system,
Right.
which is kind of cool, isn't it?
Which is why the end feds, transformer fed.
Right.
Sloper
So
doesn't have.
let's talk about that a little bit. I didn't cover that in here. With a lot of these guys that do summits on the air, they take their little QRP rig and they buy these antennas called the N-Feds antenna.
Right.
Have you seen those advertised?
Ecom makes one.
I'm sorry?
Ecom.
Yeah, see.
Yeah, there's several people that produce them. And what you'll find is they have just a piece of wire, just as I showed here, and they have a piece of coax going to this transformer.
Right.
Well, the impedance transformation ratio of that transformer is 49 to 1.
Yeah, it's huge.
So it's not a common balance, because balance can be 4 to 1, or not, or 4 to 1, or 16 to 1, or 1 to 1. 49 to 1 is actually an RF transformer. It's not a transmission line transformer.
Right.
Transmission line transformers are very efficient. They're like 95, 98, 99% efficient. This 49 to 1 thing, you have to be very careful. They heat a lot.
Yeah.
The cores saturate. So it really wouldn't work with your 500 watt system. It wouldn't work.
Well, it would if I had like a transformer this big at the base of the antenna.
Good question, don't most of the NFEDs or a lot of them use a 1 to 9?
They do. There's 1 to 9, there's 1 to 16. But remember, the feed point impedance of a half wave antenna is somewhere between 2,000 and 5,000 ohms. So if you take 9 times 50 ohms, that matching system is good for an antenna that has a 450 ohm
Right.
impedance. So that doesn't work so well. Or if it's 16 to 1, 16 times 50.
Is there a reason a lot of these guys use 1 to 9 balance instead of?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I never got that either because I've never used anything over a 4 to 1. Never
What,
needed
they're
it.
advertised, but if you really look at the guys that are in it, the one that works the best is the 49 to 1. Because then you're closer to matching it. But again, a half wave element, you can't predict the impedance closer than somewhere between 2,000 to 5,000 ohms. So how do you match it with a transformer? With this piece of transmission line, you move it back and forth where the tap is, and it's perfect. We got 1 point, in fact, that little 10 meter one, 1.05. Not too bad, huh? One other thing I wanted to tell you about at this point. Velocity factors for coax. If you look in the book, RG6 is supposed to be somewhere between a 0.82
Yeah.
to 0.85. That measures exactly 0.80
How did you do your velocity factor measurement?
with my
Calculator.
full-blown vector network analyzer.
Okay.
And it's exactly spot on. Just as yours are exactly spot on. So what else did I wanted to tell you about this? The tap point.
Did you use that little mini deal?
It would do it. No, I use my
The
VNWA
Oh, okay.
DG8SAQ.
Mm-hmm.
I've been using that thing for so long, I kind of think with it. So in any event, the beauty of this is, if you have need for an antenna that you wish to end feed. Now, you were talking about having difficulties in your backyard with neighbors and all that stuff. I happen to have an 80 meter, full wave, J-pole antenna that's 6 feet off the ground, and it's fed with a conventional open ladder line quarter wave matching section. And I get about 80 kilohertz of bandwidth out of it. And it's straight up, but it matches, and it matches quite nicely. And it's only 6 feet off the ground. Wraps around the fence line, insulated from the fence. It doesn't need a ground system. Can you imagine an 80-meter vertical without a ground system? They don't work very well. So there's a lot of ways of going about these things. This is kind of clever. I think you might, if you have a situation where you kind of need to end feed it, you don't want the neighbors to see the feed line hanging off the middle of your antenna that's hanging off the tree, it's a great way to cheat.
So Brian, you have that tall tree you were
Yes.
saying, so you could just shoot a line straight up, you know, as close to the tree as possible, straight up into the tree then. And that would give you the ability to have a pretty decent performing antenna with a 15-degree fire angle, which is like a vertical antenna, but you have a full half wave
And
antenna.
it matches superbly.
But that's a single band antenna.
Yeah,
Yes, it
it's
is.
It is.
But that doesn't mean you can't have 2 of them, or 3 of them, or 4 of them, or whatever you want.
Oh, yeah. You're gonna get it.
There's a lot of ways to attack this thing.
You can make it like a Christmas tree where you just have lines coming down.
What I have for antennas is, I told you about my 80-meter antenna. For 40, I have a pair of quarter wave verticals that use gull wing radials that are actually supported by that same fence. And I use a little top hat on them. There's a loading coil inside of a matching section with a hairpin match. And I feed them 90 degrees apart. And I've got east-west orientation. I don't need to worry too much about transmitting to the west because there's nothing out there but water. It's all directed east. And then I have underneath my E's an inverted V for 30 meters. And then on my chimney, I've got an antenna that is a vertical dipole. What's our buddy's name? No, the guy down in Arizona that builds beams.
Tom Schiller.
Tom Schilling,
Yeah.
W6BT. There.
N6BT.
N6BT.
Yeah.
I bought a little 20, 17, 15, 12, 10 vertical dipole from him, and I have it mounted on my chimney. So in an area that's homeowner restricted, complete with a board. Now in our area, the homeowners association's in charge of maintaining the streets. So the homeowners association is managed by a professional property management firm. You're going to get away with nothing. You can't change your roof, you can't change your paint color, you cannot fail to maintain your grass. They're very diligent. They don't know a thing about what I have going on because they can't see it. So there are ways. They're not ideal ways, but there are ways. And I think this is a great thing to have in your toolbox. A cheap piece of coax, whatever you want to use. It doesn't have to be cheap TV, CATV line. By the way, this stuff is very low loss, and it's very lightweight.
This is 75 ohm?
It's 75 ohm.
What power can I have?
You know, I don't know. You know, at 100 watts, I have no concern, because 100 watts is 1.4 amps, right?
Yeah.
You get to 500 watts, I don't know.
Was there any gain off of that calculation on the 15 degrees?
It's right here.
I didn't see.
It says 2.96 dBi.
So you have some
DBI.
decent, yeah.
DBI.
That doesn't mean much.
No.
Well, I think a dipole is about 2
Yeah.
dBi.
Right.
Yeah, you need.
But again, it's the pattern.
Right.
You're putting all your energy in a specific direction. So
Sure.
And that's a vertical.
yeah, it goes
Or
to this
rock.
configuration. Wrong button.
Oh, no, you're not on the wrong button. I have to
There is a little slope to it,
I
but
have
it's
to
predominantly
try to.
vertical.
Yeah, you can see it's pretty close to vertical.
Yeah, and how much height is that? That's
Oh, I said this is 130, he hasn't got 130 feet. This is an example on 80 meters. It doesn't matter which band you're playing with, the performance is gonna work out just about
Yeah,
the same,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
all proportional.
Which you need 130 to get 80 meters.
Yeah, everyone's got one of those in their backyard.
Everybody does
Yeah, the
that.
front.
But you can cheat. You
Yeah.
can take 70 feet and add a loading coil,
Right.
which is another topic.
That,
Can you
that,
imagine what it would be like, what the
It
result
won't be
would
much
be if
less.
you wrapped that wire around that tree
It'd look like Christmas.
coming down? What would it do?
Every neighbor in the world would know what you're up to. You ought to put a little
no
neon
idea.
light on, you know, ever so often, so every time you hit the key, the lights come on.
Yeah, but he means as far as pattern and whatnot, if you.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
You can plug it into NEC and see what it says.
Yeah. It would actually tell you, you can put anything you want into that program as far as the design goes.
So, question.
When you had the stub match by itself and you put it on the analyzer, what was the impedance that you set it to?
Where I set the tap, in this case, was, it read about 96 ohms.
96, okay.
But I've discovered that in the case of this 80 meter band and the 20 meter band, that tap point is between 8 and 9% of that quarter wave line length, physical length.
Right.
That's pretty close to where you want to set it.
So the 96 ohms was a quarter wave.
Yeah, but
Antenna.
again, it read 96 ohms.
Right.
But with an actual radiating element on it, it's 50 ohms.
Yes.
It just kind of gives you a rough idea. You know it's going to be higher than it is at the shorted end.
Yeah, and one more time, how is it that you determined that you needed 96 ohms?
I didn't determine I
You
needed
just
96.
went ahead.
What I had done is I had built that 80 meter J-pole, horizontal J-pole.
Yeah.
So what I did is I just measured the whole length of the antenna, and I measured the quarter wave line, and I measured the tap point I used, because that one's spot on. And I said, well, it works out between 8 and 9%, and that's where I set this, and lo and behold, it worked good. Yes?
And when you say the tap point, Phil, now do you have a calculation about where to put the tap
No.
point? Or do you just experiment?
I scaled it based on prior experiment.
But you could.
You'll
since
find it's going to be very close to that.
Yeah, and because it's so close to the ground, you don't have to climb a tree in order to tune it. So
Right.
you could easily.
That's the beauty of having it.
You could put the analyzer on it,
Put it
look
on
at
the bottom,
at the impedance after you have your wire up, extend it as high as you can get it to go. And then you can start moving the tap until you get 50 ohms.
No, but when you move the tap, do you have to like unsolder and reconnect
No,
and
you-
move up?
Actually, these are a compression connector
Yeah,
fitting,
I was-
Oh,
and you have to put on a new fitting.
Yeah, you
They're-
do have to.
They're disposable.
You do have to crimp a new
So
fitting, but.
you want to guess pretty close where you start, because every time you put a new connector on, it's another buck.
But you could potentially hand nut it on, and then, once you find about where it needs to be, you can always
okay,
crimp.
so that's, so
With-
you have a connector and.
With this RG6 stuff,
Yeah.
the shielding is primarily aluminum, which you can't solder to.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you're kind of constrained. But if you were using like RG58 or RG59, you could easily solder connections together and tap
Yeah.
them and move them back and forth.
This is
Cut
the
the
tap.
line.
So you see, he's saying that you're putting F connectors onto the coax to move the tap. So you would have to physically move it and then reconnect the two F connectors to make the tap.
You want to guess pretty close when you start.
Start long.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, and start long, right?
Oh, he's got it.
Again, most guys would not be using RG6 to do this, but I've discovered that it's so nice because it's lightweight.
Yeah. It's thinner too. It doesn't bend quite as well as like a 58 foam, but it costs a whole lot less.
And
Now,
it's-
now, Phil, did you actually get on the air with this thing?
Oh no, someday he's gonna get an HF radio.
Well, to answer your question, I did get on 10 meters with it.
Okay.
I never tried the 20 meter. I just kinda wanna do some measurements, just for purposes of the demonstration and
Okay,
experiment.
so 10 meters is not the hottest band. at this
It is
point.
not even close to the hottest
And
band.
so who'd you talk to?
I talked to Bob Mix,
Okay.
and that was really
He
questionable.
lives 4 doors down.
No, he's down on the river,
Oh, yeah?
and I'm out there in Fair Oaks, kinda up on this plateau.
Oh, you got
This is
there.
not a good thing.
No, not for you.
This is not good at all. But again, you know,
How about the noise factor? What did you find? Is it like a vertical antenna? Is it tend to be a little more noisy?
it will be,
Okay,
unless you know, the more you have slope to it, the quieter it is.
right. So
Like-
it's
like all
definitely a
antennas.
vertical antenna as far as
Well,
the,
if you do
the polar
this,
pattern.
the sloper, you know, the more slope you have in it, the more it is a horizontal
Right,
antenna.
but the more cloud warmer you're gonna end up with.
Depending.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends on what you have. You know, there's nothing that says you can't have 2 trees,
Right,
a horizontal wire,
and then drop.
put no
down.
feed line in the middle, and feed it with a quarter wave matching section. It's just like any other dipole,
Right.
only it's an edge-fed dipole.
Exactly. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, actually.
It's a great idea.
To create a dipole version that's end fed so that
You ever
don't have a
notice that any
balance.
dipole in the world's got this huge coax feed line pulling the antenna down and does like this?
Yeah, exactly.
But if you feed it on the end, there's no weight in
Yeah, all
it.
that weight.
Right. And again, you don't need a second half of the antenna for a counterpoise. So if you have a single
Well-
run, you can do your quarter wave stub match feed, and you've got a perfect antenna on
So
whatever
for a
band.
cheap piece of coax, it's amazing what you could do.
Yeah.
Anything else?
How many are you gonna build for
None.
us?
You experiment in my house.
I just showed you how to do it.
Will you bring a tree?
John's gonna plant the tree.
I got the redwood tree planted 50 years ago, wait for you.
It's surprising what you can do with a little bit of patience and a little bit of experience. You know, with this whole antenna thing, if you know that the shortest antenna length you can have that is resonant is a half wavelength, that's one thing to know. The second thing you need to know is what you can do with a quarter wave matching section. Whether it's a line that's shorted, a line that's open, or one that where you can adjust the tap point. We call those stubs. If you know those 3 things or 4 things,
You got to do
you can do an awful lot of stuff. Or you can jump in like Mike does and do phase verticals, which is a whole nother
Oh, yeah.
challenge.
And we've covered the phase
And
vertical
we've covered
system.
phase verticals.
We
And
did.
maybe we'll revisit that again. We can look at the attendance and see who was there, and if we're getting newer people coming in, it's worth revisiting. Because Phil had a really amazing hairpin circuit that fed his 2 phase vertical antennas, and they were pretty short antennas too, weren't they?
Yes, and the thing that surprised me, I actually did measurements on how much current was in each element. They were balanced within like 2%.
A lot closer than mine.
Yeah, well,
It was remarkable how close it turned out.
yeah, yours are just fed with a Y circuit, so it's all.
No, I mean, I just calculated it, I didn't measure it.
Right, yeah.
Device.
We could
That's
potentially put it on the scope and look at it, but
We can
it
find
certainly
out.
works fine though at our field day when we,
Oh, they were
Right.
great.
Yeah.
Used them for
never
30,
had any
40
problems.
years,
We
yeah.
can't wait to have you bring them out and.
We
operate
owned the
with
band
us
when
in
we had those bands.
June,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Well,
Anything else?
I think we're good. Thank
We're
you,
done.
Phil, really appreciate it. Great information.
I have some books here that are up for grabs if people are interested.
Okay,
There are a couple of beam handbooks. There's some pretty interesting publications that are out of print. It's actually the Vale Correspondent.
oh, wow.
Yeah, those are pretty vintage and pretty interesting. They're all about telegraph keys.
Right.
It was quite an interesting publication. It's not around anymore.
Also,
Anyway, some miscellaneous stuff here. Dots and dashes, another one that probably knows.
I believe there's some other books up there. If you want to put them with the other books in that green binder on the counter there, there's some other old QST and different 73 magazine up there. So if they're not all picked out already before you leave, just throw them up with the other ones. And then also we received from N6NA a copy of the 2010 ARRL handbook. Is that what that is?
I believe it is, yes.
I don't have it here, but it's in my car, so if anybody is interested in an ARRL handbook, let me know and I'll give it to you tonight. I think that book is normally like $30 or
Oh,
so.
I think they're more than that.
Is it?
Yeah, they're pricey.
Probably 40 or 50. maybe
Yeah,
more than that.
so if you're looking to, it's an old book, but at the same, it's 10 years old, but at the same time,
But
you know, they
every
only
book is
add
different,
stuff,
though.
nothing changes, so it's like the antenna handbook. I always wonder why they come out with one every year. There's only so many.
Everyone's different, huh?
Yeah, it
They
doesn't.
have a highlighter, they have in one book, they don't have in another one.
Yeah, exactly. So, let me know if you're interested in that handbook, and then please pick through Mike's stuff and see if there's anything there you want. Otherwise, next month, like I said, please write a bogus story for the bogus story contest. It would be really nice to have more than 2 people reading a story. I think we've had, at the most, I think we've had 5 or 6, yeah. So we've had a pretty good showing, and it fits within the 1 hour presentation time that we open. So we'll have plenty of time for everybody's story. I can't wait to hear Mike's. So,
He called you out, Mike.
yeah. Yeah, well, you know, we'll
It's a
see.
rare one.
Maybe he'll bring it to field day with him. All right, we'll appreciate you coming in, and also thank you to the 3 people who are watching online. Always appreciate having people actually taking the time to look at the live broadcast. That's something good. Also, one of the other things that I'm going to do for the CW Beginners course is I'm going to look into broadcasting that live, but it'll be a closed session, so you actually have to pay like you're going to the course, but you'll have online access. And if you know anybody who wants to take the CW Beginners course that isn't local here and they might be interested in doing it online,
They show up at 7 o'clock.
well, it'll be recorded. They'll be allowed to watch it again. I'll leave it up for
Oh, they can watch it, that's right. Okay.
possibly.
Yep.
I'm going to work the details out. But for right now, class will 90% for sure be available online for those who are interested. So if you know somebody who's out of town and keeps asking you, you know, I need to learn CW, where do I go? This might be an opportunity for them. All right, thank you for everybody coming in.
Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate it. We'll see you next month.
Next month.
Let me get my flash drive.